Now, Super League Review with Mark Wilson on Radio Yorkshire.
Welcome along, good evening. This is Super League Review here on Radio Yorkshire. Every Monday night, 7 till 9, we will look back on the Rugby League weekend as it happened here on Radio Yorkshire. Tonight we look back on wins for the Leeds Rhinos, the Wakefield Trinity Wildcats and the Huddersfield Giants, as well as a perfect start that the Castleford Tigers have made to the Super League season. We'll ask what is going on at the Bradford Bulls and assess the mixed fortunes of our two Hull clubs who both lost this weekend. We'll also take a look back at the Challenge Cup results and a look ahead to next week's championship action as well. And also a look ahead to our two live commentary games next weekend. Leeds London, Salford versus Castleford on Sunday. We're happy to talk all things Rugby League. At RLonRY is the Twitter handle you need, and Rugby League at radioyorkshire.co.uk is the email address to get in touch and make it your show. I'm Mark Wilson together with Richard Shawright, and our special guest tonight is Phil Caplan, managing editor of 4020 magazine and general all-round font of knowledge for all things Rugby League. Good evening, chaps. Richard, you well?
Good. I'm very good, thanks, Mark. Very good. How are you?
Not too bad. Phil, you well?
Good. I've worn my best 1970s sweater because I
heard
man.
We were I've dug mine out as well, so I
don't have anything else.
It's all new to us. Looking forward to chatting with you for the next couple of hours. But where better place to start than the Castleford Tigers, who this week announced firm plans for a new stadium, but showed why on Sunday afternoon that the Menderhose Jungle remains one of the most iconic places and most atmospheric rugby league grounds.
It's fantastic, wasn't it? Again, it's the club's growing, and you can see that. The Speckies have been fantastic. When there's a group there, you couldn't get them out of the stadium. You just had to be ushered out while I was talking to Sky. So it's just great to see. I think if we can keep growing, just what we're doing and the way the team go about the business, then you know that they're going to connect with the players the way that the players are putting in at the moment.
5 wins on the bounce then for the Castleford Tigers, a perfect start for them. They beat Hull FC 19-16 in front of almost 10,000, despite coach Darryl Powell admitting they were slightly below their best.
I don't think we were great today, to be honest. It was probably our worst performance of the season, but I thought all played well. They put us under pressure, but we found a way to win, and that's the character of the side is obviously fantastic. And we'll learn a lot of lessons from it as well, which I think is great for us. That we'll set up to defend us in a certain way, and we didn't handle it real well. So if it happens to us again, we'll hopefully learn the lesson. And the 2 points are the most important thing. Sometimes you've got to find a way to win when you're not playing well. And I thought we did that. Our last 10 minutes, the management of it, I thought was excellent after we got in front. So it's a real pleased that the players have been able to do that after. I think we said in the changing rooms that the Wigan game took a lot out of us. It was a big effort from everybody and a very physical game, and we tried our best to manage the week, but I thought we were a little bit low on energy today. I thought we scrambled really well. We defended well on our own line to keep them out, because we were under a fair bit of pressure. The game got a little bit too quick around the ruck at times for us, and we didn't manage that well. Obviously we'd conceded points before we'd touched the ball. We couldn't seem to get hold of it. We got a penalty, and then they get a 40-20, and they had all the ascendancy at the start, and it just took us a while to get into the game. And even when we did, we couldn't really find our plays. I thought we went one out pretty much in the first half, and we went away from the way that we'd been playing. But you're not going to be golden all the time, and sometimes you just got to find a way, and I thought we did that well. We found a way to win the game, which is obviously pretty pleasing. I think there's a bit of good fortune both ways on the tries. You get it, and it goes against you at times. So I'm sure there'll be times when I'm sat here not very happy, and you'll be saying the same sort of things. So over the season, I think it'll balance itself out. I think it's taken Frank a bit of time to get going, because he's he's a big human being, isn't he? You know, and he's quick as well. So I mean, he played. We're a little bit short of big men at the moment. Obviously, Wheeldon was injured today. Nathan Mass is still finding his game legs. And so Frank played in the middle a little bit today. I mean, he's 110 kilos, so he should be able to. But yeah, I'm pleased with the way he's developing. He's growing his confidence all the time, and the kid's a good player. You know, he can play in the centre, which he filled in for us last week. You can put him in the middle, and then you can play him in the back row. So, you know, players who can play those three roles, there's not many of them about. But we've had, obviously, Kirk Dixon's injured now. We've got 4 wingers at the club. James Clare's a good player as well. You know, he'll play in a couple of weeks. Nobody's going to play 27 rounds, so, you know, I think it's obviously a big part of my job to manage that in the right way and make sure that everybody gets their opportunity. Otherwise, we might as well just have 19 and just keep rolling them round. You know, I think it's important that I don't leave somebody for 10 rounds of Super League not playing and then expect him to go in and do the job. You know, I look down the track to see where players might need a rest, or where I think it's right for the team to roll it round.
Darryl Powell there talking after the game yesterday. Phil, he said Castleford weren't at their best, but they still managed to win. It's been an impressive start, hasn't it, for Castleford?
I think the most impressive number yesterday was almost 10,000 for the crowd. And I also think the victory yesterday was actually bigger than the Wigan game, because although Wigan may be a bigger scalp, that was quite a good time to be playing them. Not just coming back from the World Club Challenge in Australia, but actually what that psychologically takes out of you. So to win that game in the last minute was great, and it creates some momentum. But I think to beat a Hull team where there's a real rivalry there between Cass and Hull, again by not playing well, just says that there's a bolter out there every year, and this year it's Castleford. And whatever Darryl would say, the first priority of every club with promotion relegation coming back is not to be relegated. Anything you get after that, hitting the top 8, that's great. But he's 5 games into not being relegated. That is a great start. But the 10,000 fans turning up, I think, is what you build your club around. That and a few local players on the field, which is absolutely vital.
Yeah, they're growing, aren't they, Castleford? Richard, Darryl Powell, we know, did a great job at Featherstone, but he's really coming to the fore. I think he's earning more friends every week, isn't he?
I'm a big fan of Darryl Powell. Somewhere in my mind I've got it decided that he should be the next England coach. I don't know if that's necessarily what everyone else thinks out there, but certainly he's playing himself into position in that kind of role. Obviously Sean Wayne at Wigan as well, but you look at the job he's done at Castleford from where they were when he took over from Ian Millwood last year. I know Gary Schofield references it today in his column in the League Express, how it could have been a honeymoon period, but it's continued on. The fact is they've just got to keep rolling on. Will a defeat knock their confidence back too much? We'll find out sooner rather than later, I'm sure, unless they go through the season unbeaten, which I'm sure will be great for Castleford and great for the competition. Probably won't happen.
But one thing they will get is injuries. I mean, again, you look at the clubs that are struggling at this stage of the season, and you know, take Caplan, for example, 12 players out this weekend. No matter how you're playing, if you haven't got the bodies on the park, and particularly if they're in key positions, you're going to struggle. And Darryl has hit upon a winning formula, and he's managed to keep the right players on the field for these 5 games. So he will roll them round and he will make changes. But actually, you judge Cass when there is a slump in form, which happens to every team. There are some injuries to key players. All you can say is, at the moment, they could not have asked for a better start. The next 2 fixtures are winnable ones, and then the one after that is St Helens, and that might be the test of where they are. Yeah,
they play Salford, don't they, at the weekend, where their live commentary build up from 2 p.m. on Sunday right here on Radio Yorkshire.
And we didn't mention Rangi.
Well, I was going to ask the question. They may come up against him next weekend. Everyone thought him leaving would be the demise of the Tigers, but in some ways, Phil, has it been the making of them?
Yeah, I think the thing about Darryl, you were saying, great coach at developing players and developing a team ethic. And I think, with the greatest respect to Rangi, who is one of the fantastic individual talents that we've got in our competition, he is exactly that. You allow him to be an individual talent, you give him free rein, and then you try and follow him as best you can, because if he doesn't know what he's doing, how are you supposed to know what he's doing? But when he's not there, then other players have to take responsibility, and I think that's what Darryl has fostered in them. That I think Andy Lynch coming back is massive, again going back to having a local presence. I think him and Craig Hubie up front, they've got the 2 hookers. Whether they'll have both of them next season, I suspect not, but make the most of it while they're both there at the moment. And then you've got some half-backs with points to prove. So, the balance is right, and he is very good at getting this teamwork ethic out and it's working for them at the moment. And for Castleford fans, let's hope it continues. It's great for West Yorkshire.
Yeah, Grant Millington said earlier in the season he actually enjoys it more now because there is a structure of play. They know what's happening, and they do look a well-disciplined team. They're scoring points for fun, and while they're going to do that, they're going to be a threat to anyone, aren't they? They've got some real strike. The issue then becomes getting the ball to those strike players, and as the season goes on, other opposing teams will do work on the middle of the field to stop the ball getting out to the likes of Michael Shenton and Justin Carney, and it's then what have Castleford got to cope with that. But the good thing is the forwards are playing well as a unit. There's a confidence about the place. They genuinely have got something there that the supporters can buy into. And we'll talk about Bradford later, and that could, both teams have got a great work ethic, but what have the Bradford fans got to buy into at the moment? The Castleford fans are riding the crest of a wave. Yeah, they are at the minute. They've had some tough times, haven't they, down at the Jungle, Weldon Road, or the Menderhose Jungle as it's known now, but they are flying high, and we'll find out on Sunday right here on Radio Yorkshire whether they can carry that on Twitter at RLonRY. If you want to get in touch, we've had quite a bit of interaction today, so if you want to join us, please do. Contribute. If you raise any valid points, we will discuss them. Of course, it was a Yorkshire derby at the Menderhose Jungle, and where there's a winner, there's got to be a loser as well. Lee Radford was on the losing side. Let's hear what he said after the game.
They're the cruel ones to take. I thought some of the efforts of some of the players were obviously fantastic, and probably deserved more out of that game than they got, I reckon.
Did you feel like there was always going to be another try to decide it?
Yeah, obviously, when we're sort of start our second half and we're, I won't say in control, but we're getting to the end of our sets, finishing around that 60 mark, and a couple of key decisions towards the back end of that really cost us, and the game or the pendulum sort of swung their way, and obviously they took full control of that.
Disappointed with the try at the end there, in the way it came off. It looked like it was possibly preventable.
Certainly preventable, yeah. Again, we'll have to readdress that on Monday, unfortunately.
But in terms of performance, I mean, they're unbeaten.
They go on bouncing, and again we've lost another close one, which is disappointing. It's becoming a trait at the moment now. It's probably the third time it's happened, so something we want to eradicate real quick.
Is that the source of the frustration? Because you don't want what ifs and what.
No, but it is. It's that's 3 what ifs now. Individuals sort of same mistakes are reoccurring, really.
If you look at some positives, I thought your captain was absolutely
immense. He's been. Can't sing his praises enough. He's been outstanding. I thought some really good performances, and it probably wasn't the end-to-end rugby that everybody was expecting. But I thought it was a set for set, and whichever team obviously broke first. Whenever a team got consecutive sets, there tended to be a score, and unfortunately we've come out second best.
Didn't help by losing Josh in the first half.
No, again another middle. They're not better what they used to. These big blokes. I don't know what's going on. We've got 4 stood in the changing rooms now, who's obviously not available for selection, so that poses a few questions certainly.
What did he do? Like he's
done his ankle. Yeah. He's obviously again, sick of saying this. He'll be going for scans tomorrow, and we'll get some more info during the week.
Are you hopeful that you'll get either Carvel or Fecker on both?
Well, I was hopeful this week that would obviously have them two, and that never prevailed. So. If I say no, it might happen.
Was Gareth alright? You brought him off towards the end.
Ellis, yeah, just because of the stint he'd put in, the effort he'd put in. Watson had gone well. I just wanted to, that final kick, that last 10 minutes, but the balance of the game had been decided before that, unfortunately.
And there was nothing with Shaw either. That would just look like
just a tactical change. We thought we could expose them a little bit with a pass on the end of the line with regards to Jordan Rankin, but again, thought he came on, did all right. Surely did a good job, so it's an option I've got on my sleeve.
And just last one from me in terms of your new boy Colburn as well. Great to get that ball down.
Great finish. He'll certainly is. I don't know how many carries he made, but he did a real good job out of backfield for us, as did the other winger for Tula. I thought they really helped our big fellas out, and where it was, there was actually a post in front of a pillar in front of it, so I couldn't see it, but I'm told it was a fantastic finish.
Lee Radford there talking about his side's defeat at Castleford yesterday. That leaves them with a losing record. They've won 2, lost 3 of their opening 5 games. Richard, it's been a little bit of a mixed start, hasn't it, for Hull FC?
Yeah, and I guess you look at that game yesterday, they led throughout up until the last 5 minutes and then lose with that Frankie Mariano try and then the drop goal. It's a matter of getting yourself back on form, especially when you've got a game on Sunday against Widnes, who we saw obviously, and we'll talk about more, against Leeds on Friday, who were a very good team, unbeaten up until that game. So it's another tough game for Hull. They seem to have a very tough start to the season. Not as tough as their City rivals in terms of points, but there'll be a few concerns around the City. But you think with the players they've got, the longer the season goes on, the better it will be for Hull. Yeah,
another young British coach, Phil, getting his chance. I think the expectation level is certainly a lot higher than it is for Darryl Powell at Castleford. How do you think he's doing, Radford?
It's not easy to change the ethic overnight. I think, again, you look at the sides that have integrated youngsters and that have brought in local players and that have tried to change the way they do things. They don't get instant success. Arguably the 3 teams that have done it the most, Leeds, St Helens and Wigan, didn't get trophies as they started this change. So you have to go through a process whereby the coach gets his methods over, his way over, the players that he wants in the position that he wants. I mean, the big plus so far for Hull, I think, has been the form of people like Gareth Ellis and Joe Westerman, particularly Westerman, who's been one of the standout players. And they're in back row positions where Lee Radford has played. So I think they're playing to their strengths a little bit more. The issue for me with Hull has always been the halfbacks and the fact that they don't seem to be able to develop and uncover and have patience with locally produced halfbacks. And again, you've got to give people like Jordan Rankin time if he's the guy you're going to invest your money in. So I think they're moving in the right direction. Darryl Powell, quite honestly said that actually the best team lost. So there's positives there that Lee Radford can take from that. The danger, it'll be a theme presumably running through the season as well as this programme, is when you bring back promotion and relegation and you start looking at league tables, even if you say, well, 7-8 rounds is when you probably need to be making an assessment, possibly after Easter, twitchy chairman will look at them and go, we need to make a change. But I would stick with what they're doing. It's a completely different way of working with the Australian version that they've had for the last 2 or 3 years. It's almost going back to the Richard Agar school when he was at Hull, and obviously John Keir before him. They built a team that could win a cup and that had a lot of pride and identity about it. They sort of went away from that. They're hoping now to bring that back, but it will take time.
What is the expectation at Hull? Because Peter Gentle he made the top 8, he got to Wembley in the Challenge Cup final and he lost his job.
I think the problem is the way they played in that cup final and the fact that they were so insipid when they went out in the playoffs. In some respects they've been better finishing 9th and building than finishing 8th and getting absolutely hammered at Huddersfield to the point where something had to be done. Part of the problem, again, with the great respect to chairman, is that they are building up expectations. Before a ball has been kicked, they're saying what their team is going to achieve. We're seeing it with the good doctor at Salford at the moment, and it does put pressure. There has to be an element of realism there. If they finished 8th last year and they made the cup final but didn't win, then making the playoffs and getting to the cup final again is realistic. Winning the competition probably isn't. So a 2-3 start is not disastrous.
Yeah, a couple of big games coming up for them, Richard. As you said, Widnes and Salford too. You would hope they'd fancy winning, wouldn't you?
Well, Salford are an interesting proposition, aren't they? When will the real Salford turn up? They've signed all these players in the off-season. A collection of players who perhaps have failed elsewhere or were not quite up to the mark at bigger clubs or whatever. Or the likes of Rangi Chase, who've come from a smaller club. Or no, I don't want to say a smaller club, because Castleford and Salford, if you take Kukash out of it, similar sized clubs historically, I guess. They've got to blend all those players together, and so far this season, not quite working for them, Salford. I think they've got a very tough game, as we say, against Widnes on Sunday, but they'll turn up marginal favourites. You think, again, does the defeat on Friday knock Widnes' confidence in the way we were talking about Castleford? They're 2 very winnable games. I think they'll win at least one of them. Which one? I'm not sure. I sit on the fence on that, but I think they've got a very good chance against Widnes on Sunday.
Now, Super League Review with Mark Wilson on Radio Yorkshire.
So that wraps up the Castleford Tigers and Hull FC for now. What about the Bradford Bulls and the Huddersfield Giants? They went head-to-head on Sunday at the Providence Stadium, Odsall, and the Bradford Bulls have been in the news for all the wrong reasons this season, and yesterday was another instalment of the ownership saga as Dr Marwan Kukash and his wife Mandy were at the Providence Stadium watching what could be their new project in action. A decision on that will be made this week. We'll speak to Phil about that shortly. On the field, though, it was a tough afternoon for the Bradford Bulls, comprehensively beaten by an impressive Huddersfield side. We'll hear from Francis Cummins and Chev Walker shortly, but first, here is the Huddersfield boss, Paul Anderson. Paul, you said you're the Bradford Bulls one. I think it's fair to say you've come and given them one, haven't you?
Pardon? Yeah, obviously we're good at the win. If you forget the scoreboard, I think we're just happy that we managed to put some things together and managed to get over the line and take fourth officials and video referees out of the equation. We managed to score tries on our own minute.
How hard is it for you when you're so dominant, you know, in every aspect of the game? You were on top today. How hard is it for the players to keep those standards up?
It shouldn't be hard at all. You should just keep going with your processes regardless. I always want my players to express themselves and play what's in front of them, but it's always got to be on the back of something good. You can't try and create things off poor play, and I thought that's what we did at times today. We tried to overplay at times. The scoreboard suggested that, and that's for the team that we want to be. We've got to sometimes forget the scoreboard and keep going through our processes. Because there's a reason why it was like it was at half time, is because he was real patient. Bruffy handled the kicking in the first half very well, just put Bradford in corners and made them look up and have 100 metres to go, which is a very simple theory of the game, and it's a pretty effective one.
It is. Bruff did kick well, didn't he? He penned Bradford back, but you at times had a lot of defending to do on your own line. You did that quite well. Yeah,
there were some times when it was a little bit quick on try line. We seem to enjoy defending on try line for some reason, but we'll have to rectify that. But like I said, you forget the scoreboard, and Bradford asked a lot of questions today. What they didn't do is give in. You forget the scoreboard, like I said, we scored some tries off some good play, and you forget the scoreboard. Bradford scored 18 points, was it, against us, and that for us defensively is not good enough. So we've just got to make sure that our concentration's good and our retention's even better.
Seemed to be a lot of emphasis early on in getting the ball out wide to Brett Ferris and Wardle. Was that a tactic before the game?
No, not really, not at all. We play very simple. Franny said in the press in the week that he knows where we're going to come, and you look at our team and it's no surprise, is it? You look at the people we've got, we're going to come straight at you, and that's what we did. We made some good metres around the field, but at times we just tried to overplay, and it's a little bit disappointing, but it's positive as well that it's been a while since we've had a win, so we're just happy about that.
There's not many second rowers playing better than Brett Ferris, is there, at the minute?
Oh, he's been awesome since he came to this club. He's very, very good, and the thing for him is he's still capable of a lot more, because he's not fit yet. He came off the World Cup, he's had no pre-season, had a little bit of surgery as well, so that's why we was contemplating getting him out of there. We brought Jason Chan off with an hour to go, or an hour gone, and we was contemplating getting Brett out of there, but he needs to work hard so he can stay out there.
And Lou Robinson, I thought he had a good game, not only with ball in hand, but he put a few big shots in as well defensively.
Well, I said at half time, I asked Robbo to stand up. I said, look at the fella, he's a midget, he's a short fella. I said, you big bloke should be embarrassed watching him get off his line and belt people. As simple as that. He's got that in him, he's an aggressive little thing, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Happy with the overall the result then? Things to work on in the performance?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said to the players, it's been a while. Let's get ready to sing a song, but be aware we've got a lot of improvement to make.
Akuma Tai came back in today, got a couple of tries. What were your thoughts on his performance?
Yeah, he's a good player. He's just got to make sure he turns up on time.
And Mr. and Mrs. Kukash were here today. I take it they weren't coming to look at you?
Pardon? No, it's like I say, there's some rumblings in there. The doctor's made it. I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, the doctor, but Dr. Kukash has made and his wife have made some real clear that they want something of this club, and I just said on TV that if Mrs. Kukash spends money like mine, then he's in for a hard time, isn't he?
Yeah. Looking forward to next week. Have all the players pulled through okay?
Yeah. I think we're pretty good, mate, to be fair. There's no real injuries. I just got dragged out and did the press conference straight away, but we'll know more on the one bus, but there's nothing in the game. Some blokes played very little time, so it should be fresh as daisies.
Paul Anderson there speaking after his side's comprehensive win at Bradford yesterday. Phil, we spoke about this one off air, and it was an easy win, wasn't it, despite the guts and determination Bradford show. We'll come on to them in a minute, but a routine win for Huddersfield.
It was men against boys, but it was going to be as soon as you saw the team sheet, and you don't want to be playing the physically biggest team in the league with literally one prop on your team sheet. You know, Huddersfield had the luxury of 3 good props on the bench, Bradford resorted to playing Chev Walker as a starting prop, so was always going to be that way, I think. Huddersfield have only lost once this season, so all of this, it's great to sing the victory song again. They ain't doing too badly. It was going to always be an interesting year for them, because, as people say that are in sport, winning something is fine, but retaining it or building on that is actually harder. So for the first time for 81 years, Huddersfield have a trophy. That actually brings its own pressures, and at the start of every season, you reassess your gold, and they've gone up a level. Now, it's going to, obviously, they're going to be one of the contenders come the business end of the season, and they don't need to start blowing everybody away. I think the shame yesterday was that you just knew before a ball had been kicked that actually wasn't going to be a contest.
Yeah, I think from a Bradford point of view, they needed to get off to a good start. They dropped the kick-off, they were behind early on, and really that was that, wasn't it?
I think the great thing from Bradford's point of view was the fact that you can lose by 66 points and the bulk of your fans will cheer you off. That just tells you everything about the effort they put into the game. But what we are talking about this year, and with restructuring starting at the end of this season, with relegation being introduced and then a new league structure in 2015, is we're being constantly told that we will have more competitive and meaningful games. Well, yesterday gave you an indication why, however you play around with the structure, you actually might not. And the other issue that, again, we spoke about yesterday at the game was the fact that to make that game even tilt the balance slightly, I think there is an issue about not allowing Anthony Mullally to play for Bradford. He's been arguably one of their most important players in the last 2 or 3 weeks. He's starting to get the kind of game time that Huddersfield want him to have. I think his loan period is going to be extended, so he's going to end up spending most, if not all, of the season at Bradford. So to not allow him to play against Huddersfield when they are so short of forwards, again, I think just, the people that suffer the most from a decision like that are the fans that turn up and pay their money.
OK, Richard, Caplan away, Warrington and then Hull up for the Giants. They were written off many times last season. They lasted the course. Are they going to do the same thing again this year?
Yeah, I think they will. All the signs are there, aren't they? As Phil was saying, they've only lost once. It's not a major crisis at Huddersfield. The draw with Leeds is not a terrible result, is it? When we know Leeds' experience of winning and getting points in tight games, they'll be fine. Fourth in the table as we speak. I mean, they've got that trip to France on Saturday. What kind of a trip's that? They're going to go in there again, much like this week against Bradford, against a team, the new crisis club in Super League, the Caplan Dragons, with expecting to win pretty much just once they've got on the plane, off the plane, before even they've got on the plane, before they've even got their passports out. They're expected to win this game on Saturday. So that's the different kind of pressure they've got going into this game. But if they perform like they did yesterday, obviously you were there and I listened back here in the studio, that they'll pick up 2 points there, no problem.
Well, we'll find out. We've got some interesting audio on Catalan. We'll have a chat about them later on in the show. This is Super League Review right here on Radio Yorkshire. If you want to get involved, at RLonRY is the Twitter handle you need. You can email us, rugbyleague@radioyorkshire.co.uk. You're more than welcome along, whoever you support. We will be covering the Championship teams later on. We'll be speaking to Gareth Walker about that just after 8 o'clock tonight, but still plenty to go at. Let's hear from that game yesterday the thoughts of the Bradford Bulls coach, Francis Cummins.
We just feel they've got quality everywhere. They've got a massive team, massive bench, and we knew if we weren't quite right and we give errors away, then they'd knock up some or they could knock up some scores. But for people to play the minutes they've played, and even getting outside backs to carry, because we had to try and look after our middles, we had to try and do it another way. So we know we had to be good in the way we were going to play, because we've not got the biggest wingers, we've not really got the biggest backs to trouble forwards, but we needed a field position, and we lost that at times.
You said during the week about important you cut out silly errors, and unfortunately made one straight from the first whistle. It put you on the back foot straight away, didn't it?
Yeah, no, that win were nasty, wasn't it? It got both teams, to be honest, but it didn't help us. It didn't, and sometimes when you're in this situation, an early error, it happened the other week, an early error then makes the anxiety shoot up again. But we regrouped to score some nice tries, but it doesn't help. We give Huddersfield possession back at times when you can't afford to do that. You've got to do it on your terms.
Came out at the start of the second half, you got the first try. It was a real spirited effort. You had a lot of possession. In some ways you're a little bit disappointed you didn't make more of that. Yeah,
we lacked a little bit of quality. We made an error down that end, but it showed when we went set for set and we started to accumulate possession itself. Now we looked dangerous. you know, and that's the game really now. It's a modern game. Like, if you've got more possession than the opposition and you're willing to use it and make the right decisions, and you come up with the results. Unfortunately, we ebbed away from us. We gave it away cheaply, and then they were on the run again.
You said you're lacking some big bodies, but Manu Okafor, I thought, had a really impressive couple of spells for you.
He did, yeah, and you know, literally him and Chev, they were on their own, and you know, those two fellas have really stood up in this really difficult times. And we're probably Adrian Patel as well, who Chev's probably been a leader, as in, you know, how he talks and around the place, but Nash and Adrian Patel have really now took on that mantle, which is really pleasing. I'm really happy with both of those, and Nash has done well. He's done well because we had to try and play him longer than we normally do today. And
just a word as well for Danny Bridge. I thought he went well as well for you.
Danny Bridge has done great. Danny Bridge is predominantly he's a back rower who's played under 19s, and he's played in the Championship for Swinton, had a few games for Super League for Warrington, but now I asked him to play in the front row, and he did. He hung in there, and Ollie Roberts did well as well when he came on. So, you know, we've got some good young lads there who are going to benefit from that experience, which hopefully will pay us back down the line.
The fans give the troops a standing ovation when they went off. That must please you. The fans are right behind. They know what's going on. They're right behind the club at the minute.
They are, yeah. You know, everyone knows the situation. You know that, you know, the worst. You know, there's some bad things about this situation, but what the good things are, and unfortunately I've been here before, and unfortunately I've been here with this club, is it does bring it right back to what it's about. You know, it's about those young men fighting against adversity, doing the best, and those people in the terrace are supporting them. And, you know, I can't speak highly enough for the Bradford fans, because they've had to put up with a lot over this little while, and they're still turning out, and you know, that's what it's all about. They're not fanatics, they're not fans, they're supporters, and that's what we need, because, you know, at times they're not far away, and other times they make silly mistakes, but it's not through lack of effort. In fact, most of the time we're trying to chase his tail and do too much.
Yeah. The new potential new owners were here today. Have you had any contact with them?
No. I've read the things as well and seen. I'm not on Twitter, but people have shown me the tweets, and to be honest, it's give the place a lift. It sounds like there's a few in there who could be all of a similar ilk. So I don't know the ins and outs of that. That's not my job to know, and I'll get told probably 10 minutes before you fellas do. So it gives us something to look forward to. You know, it looks like that the club's going to be in some good hands, and you know, the potential that this place has got is huge. We've got some great young lads. We're going to have to add on to a squad. We knew that because of the situation, but hopefully there's some better times to come.
Yeah, you got a big game next week. How's it looking injury-wise? Any troops got knocks today?
Luke George, probably one who's going to probably miss that one because he's done an hamstring. We brought Adam Henry off towards the back end of the game with sore ribs, but he seems to think he's going to be all right. But they all tend to say that anyway. So we're going to have to nurse him through and see how he gets. The rest are just the general bumps and bruises that they get in every game.
So looking past the scoreboard, quite a lot for you to take out of this one, I guess.
Oh, we've got some great effort in there. We've got some great character, and you know what? We've just took another one, haven't we? But we'll get back up again. We'll get back up and we'll get ready for next week.
Francis Cummins there, apologies, talking, Phil, about what was a tough afternoon for the boys, wasn't it? But I think I tried to sum it up with the first question, that, you know, they did show a lot of grit, they showed a lot of determination, and as you said earlier, they got a standing ovation from the fans. The fans aren't daft, are they? They know when their team is up against it. They were up against it yesterday.
And all they want to see is effort and not giving in. And even though the scoreboard was against them so early on that you knew the way the result was going, they didn't give in. And you mentioned characters. You look at somebody like skipper Matt Diskin, he's not capable of giving in. You know, they had two relatively young halfbacks. You know, Liam Sutcliffe was coming on and a full debut. They can't do anything if the pack isn't going forward. So I don't know, you know, realistically what Bradford fans would have actually expected, other than a defeat with honour. I think what we can say is, you know, we've talked about coaching ethics right from the very beginning of the programme, and what Darryl Powell is doing and what Lee Radford's trying to do. And again, I have just got nothing but the highest admiration for everything that Francis Cummins has been doing over the last 2 years. I think the dignity he's held himself with, the fact, the work that he's done at times unpaid. The positivity he puts around the place with some young kids that he's bringing in the squad. When it does click, when the money's there, when there's less pressure on the team to perform, again, we'll mention it all night, but you bring back relegation and there's a sector already hanging over the Bradford team, and they do have there is a massive game this Sunday at Hull KR for both teams. But what the basic core of the Bradford club is actually sound, and that does give you something to work from.
Yeah, looking at the ownership issue, Richard, Dr. Kukash and his good lady were there yesterday. To me, it was all a little bit too public. But, from my point of view, they came into the stand for literally 30 seconds and then went away again. What's your thoughts on that?
It's a shame that the greatest public figure in Rugby League is not a player, it's not Kevin Sinfield, it's not a coach, it's not Tony Smith, say, at Warrington, it's not Sean Wayne at Wigan, it's Dr. Kukash. Which is great for him. He's a great self-publicist, and it's great for Salford at the moment, and it could be great for Bradford if his wife buys the club, not him, obviously. But where is the sport when the most important figure at the moment, the one who's doing the most shouting, is a bloke who, I don't know, what did he know about Rugby League 2 years ago? That sounds very parochial, I don't mean it to sound that way, but
I think by his own admission he didn't know a lot, did he? I mean, Phil, I know you've got a lot of thoughts on this. Is he even going to get the club?
I think we're, again, trying to take soundings from people who would have an inside track on that at the ground yesterday. There are either 4 or 5 bids. I think 3 can be discounted. That leaves him as a 4th one that is realistic and viable and has money behind it, and a potential consortium 5th bid, which, depending on who you speak to, might be Liverpool based or might be London based, but either way you would hope the 2 that are left that possibly are the credible ones, they do have money attached to them. The issue with the Kukash bid is one for the RFL, and there are so many subplots in that about whether you have the same family owning 2 clubs, whether it changes the dynamic around the table when it comes to voting on issues in the future that the RFL wouldn't want. You've got to add into this scenario the fact that the RFL own the lease to the ground, so they actually need somebody with money that's going to secure their asset. And I think privately, although they possibly wouldn't admit it publicly, they would hope there was another bid on the table that perhaps is 50p more than the Kukash bid. But I think by going public he's actually been incredibly clever, because he's going to force the RFL to say why they haven't given him the club if he doesn't win the bid.
What shall we say, the sceptics will be looking at the league table and thinking, hang on, if Bradford hadn't have had 6 points deducted, the bottom 2 would be London and Caplan. That's the Rugby League's worst nightmare, isn't it? Yeah,
and you could add into that if you wanted. Again, we don't know how the Championship season is going to pan out, but there's 5 teams going down out of 14. You could have 3 Cumbrian teams in there. What would Rugby League look like if the 3 Cumbrian sides were in Championship 1, which is effectively whatever anybody says being sidelined? We're always talking about 2 divisions of 12. If you're outside that 24, it's going to be very hard to get in and make an impact. And we're also talking about how would the sport look if it was literally confined to the M62 corridor, which is something that we always get pilloried with. And it's the key question about what we want this sport to be. What we think round this table, I personally would always ring fence markets where I think we can make a significant impact, and for me the south of France, London and a city like Bradford are places that are worth protecting from a purely business point of view if we want to change the image and perception of the sport, and if we want people other than Dr. Marwan Kukash to be our public face, then we have to appeal to more people on a broader base. And people will say, disgraceful result for London. Arguably, the more important result was that their under-19s beat Wakefield 52-18. They are producing a prodigious amount of talent down there. Do we want to throw that away merely by bringing back relegation? I just think there's a lot of big issues that aren't going to be solved by just bringing back relegation.
Well, we'll speak about London in a minute. I've got a lot of thoughts on them as well. Richard, some big games coming up for the Bulls. As Phil said, Hull KR at the weekend. They've had games against Wakefield and London. They won both of those. If they can win this game against Hull KR, they're going to really put the cat amongst the pigeons.
Back on zero. I mean, you pointed out there they've won 2 games already out of 5 this season. They would already be on 4 points without the deduction. But with the dreaded R word around, this is a must-win game at Hull KR on Sunday, who themselves have been performing under par. I think it'd probably be fair to say. I mean, I saw them on TV against Castleford early in the year. they had penalty after penalty against Castleford, couldn't score. Maybe I'm not giving enough credit to Castleford in that performance, but that is a big game. You would say, listening to Francis Cummings, listening to Chef Walker as we will, the spirit in the club at Bradford, is that enough to get them through against that game against Hull KR, having been bruised against Huddersfield at the weekend? I would tend to side with them winning it, and it's going to be. I'm kind of agreeing with Phil on this, and I'm not a big fan of relegation. I don't think it serves the sport as a whole well. The problem is there are clubs who would obviously like a shot in Super League. Of course, that's the dream, isn't it? Everyone talks about the dream. They refer to, say, Swansea in football, going from the 4th tier to the top tier and playing in Europe and winning trophies. Is there the money in some of these clubs who will be promoted that can compete? Or will we just see the same 4, 5, 6 teams competing at Old Trafford, at Wembley?
We'll come on to that in a moment.
You say it's a must-win game for Bradford. It's a must-win game for Hull KR.
It is,
I think Bradford, their season will gather momentum when the ownership issue is settled, and on the back of that ownership issue, are they going to apply for any of their deducted points to come back, which is possibly a legal minefield which we certainly couldn't sort out in here. But I think, again, this is a massive game for Hull KR to have not won a game yet this season. To have had a really tough fixture list where they're playing all the top teams, and to have played them all by Easter when they then play Hull, this is the fixture that they have to get 2 points out of.
Yeah, at RLonRY, if you've got an opinion on anything we're discussing tonight, we're going to be talking about all things Wakefield, Leeds to come. We'll chat about Hull KR. We'll also have a look at the other teams in Super League. We're going to be talking Championship. Everything covered tonight. If you want to get in touch, please do. At RLonRY. If you want to get in touch via email, rugbyleague@radioyorkshire.co.uk. We did speak to Chev Walker after the game yesterday, and it's fair to say the spirit in the camp is pretty good.
It's been the case throughout all the saga really that's gone on. There were periods there though where we were a little bit disappointed with ourselves. We were a bit soft sometimes, and we're showing a lack of attitude that's not really in our character really. So we're a bit disappointed with that. But yeah, the numbers are low, and the boys put their hands up, and we'll always have a dig.
Numbers are low means life in the front row for you. What's that like?
Yeah. Hey, if Franny asks me to play there, I'm willing to put my hand up, and I've said in the press that Franny's in, and there's no reason why I shouldn't be. So if I've got to play front row, I've got to play front row. I'm not going to spit my dummy out and say I can't do it. I'll just do it to the best I can.
It was a tough afternoon, but there's a lot of positives I think to take out. Yeah, you got 18 points, but truth be told, you could have had quite a few more, couldn't you?
Yeah, we could have done. Obviously we didn't have the go forward to get us into territory to attack them really. Give away some cheap balling yardage, and it cost us when they're that big and they're that well drilled. And they've had stability for a few years now, so they know what they're doing and they know where they're going. So we struggled with them at times. But again, field position killed us.
Tough game today, but you've just got to forget about that now and move on. A big game next week.
That's it. It's cliche, innit? But you're always going one game by game, and things keep changing week by week here, and they have done obviously since November. So all we're looking for is some kind of stability and just a chance to go forward and hopefully progress and become a stable team and a team that's got some numbers to be able to do that.
There's been a lot of talk that the club might be moving forward off the pitch. Has that given the lads in the dressing room a lift at all?
Until it's set in stone, it can't give anybody a lift. We're at this moment in time, we're not reaping benefits of what's going on off of the field because nothing's been finalised. So all we can do is come in and be together as a team and keep working hard and just hope that something does get sorted and that we're all able to still be part of it going forward.
You got a great ovation from the fans at the end. That must mean something to the players as well.
Yeah, they've been constant from 2011 when I got here, and things looked rosy, and then obviously we went into admin again, and they've not had it easy. As players, you get the chance to go elsewhere and you get thinking there, but they've chosen to be Bradford fans, and the fact that Bradford fans for life. So give them credit where it's due. They turn up every week, and they don't seem disappointed in heavy scores, knowing that we're all in it together.
There we heard from our man on the Bradford side, Chev Walker, who gave us his thoughts. The spirit in the camp, Phil, is good, isn't it? There's no getting away from that. They're up against it. The players are all in it together, but as Chev says, until the ink is signed on the contract, they'll believe it when they see it.
Well, how many other clubs at this stage of the season could have lost Gareth Carvell without even playing a game, Nick Scruton, Jared Sammett, and not have Heath Lestrange from last year? You know, you're talking about some very key players that take on very important roles, and they're not there through no fault of anybody's other than the fact that the financial state the club is in. And again, we touched on the points deduction and whether it's right or not in an era when you bring back relegation. I think, who does that harm the most? The players. These players could get relegated, which might mean their jobs not being there on the basis of a decision that's made in an office somewhere, when these are the same players who have taken pay cuts, who've played for nothing, who have been told on 4 occasions in the last 2 years that there's no owner, that it's a rudderless ship, and yet they're the guys being penalised. On top of which, they've only had half of the allocation they should have had, which again was a decision made before relegation was brought back in. So, you know, fine, if it's putting them in a position where they've got to rebuild. Melbourne Storm had all their points taken off having breached the salary cap. They weren't going to get relegated. They played for pride that year. They rebuilt their club and came back stronger. Bradford aren't now in a position to do that because there's a trapdoor all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Richard, can Bradford stay up?
Yes. Well, they've won 2 games already, which is better than some teams down the bottom end of the table. I mean, Phil's right about the punishment is given to the innocent, in a sense. Same that happens in football. Teams get deducted points for previous owners running up debts or whatever that they can't afford to pay and force nickel them into administration. And those people walk away from the game and don't get punished. It's one of those perverse things in sport that a club gets punished for something, the sins of somebody else. Someone comes in, tries to clear up the mess, and they've got to clear up an even bigger mess through no fault of their own. How does that attract someone to buy a club? Unless they can get the points deduction removed.
OK, Phil, can they stay up, the Bradford Bulls?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course they can. If they get an owner, if they get some players, if some of... There is still this issue of, are there enough quality players available? Are they still going to be getting squad players who aren't making the first team on a regular basis at another club? Does that actually make them any stronger? But I think for Bradford at the moment, it purely is an issue of bodies. They have no choice as to virtually who their 17 is from week to week. It's the 17 that are standing after the last training session. Get more players in, they can win. Yeah, they can win enough games to stay up.
I asked Francis a very unfair question on Thursday. I said, does he prioritise games? He said, no, we want to win them all. He was never going to beat Huddersfield at the weekend, but this weekend is a game he can win, isn't there?
And Anthony Mullally comes back, so he's got one straight away who is a big guy up front, who's got a point to prove. If they do get the ownership sorted out, we believe it'll be Thursday. Let's just say Dr. Kukash does have the winning ace in his hand, and the lovely Mandy takes over the recruitment side, and all of a sudden 3 or 4 players extra are on board. Yeah, it's a different Bradford. If I was Hull KR, I'd be a little bit wary of what's actually coming on Sunday. They could be a lot more buoyant than they were this Sunday.
Yeah, well, we'll find out on Sunday, of course. We'll talk as well about Hull Kingston Rovers later on in our show. You are listening to Super League Review here on Radio Yorkshire at RLonRY. If you want to get involved, feel free to drop us a tweet. You're more than welcome. That rounds up then the Bradford Bulls and the Huddersfield Giants. Mixed fortunes for them at the weekend. But another team, guys, who were buzzing is the Wakefield Trinity Wildcats. Back-to-back wins for them. They won comprehensively in London. And I caught up earlier this afternoon with their 4-try hero, Richard Mathers.
Yeah, it was a great performance from the boys. It's always a tough place to go down to London. You sort of just want to get there and get the job done and get back. You know, you've obviously got the element of travel and deal with playing for not many supporters. So it's always a tough, tricky game. And personally, it was good to get over for a few tries, and it was on the back of all our outside backs' good work and platform led by the forwards.
30 points to 6 up at half time. So the damage done in that first 40 minutes then?
Yeah, we really wanted to concentrate on starting well We watched quite a bit of tape on London, and they're a young, enthusiastic side who start games really big. So we wanted to match that. We had a really big pack to start with. Scott Anderson came back from injury and was absolutely fantastic for us. Obviously, Nick Scruton and Tawai Matautai played as well at that time. So we went for a lot of size to match their pack, and really got on top of them in the first sort of 20-30 minutes and managed to post a lot of points. We scored some great tries, some really good pieces of skill on the back of the pack's good work.
It was important you built on the win against Caplan the previous week, and you've done that in some style. The confidence must be building by the week for the boys.
Yeah, well, I guess like against Caplan, it was really important to get that first win. Just to sort of reaffirm all the work you've done in pre-season and all the strategies that you put into place. And when you get in, when you lose and you lose sort of 2 or 3 on the bounce, it's great to get that first win just to sort of reaffirm where you're headed, and then to score 50 points last week against the great Caplan side, and then to back it up against London away this week, another 50 points shows that we've got a lot of points in our arsenal, and it's just, as you say, it's great for confidence. We just need to build on it, but not fall in love with ourselves. We understand where there's a lot tougher games and different challenges to come, but it's a great first couple of wins for us.
I'm looking at the lineup that you put out at the weekend, and you mentioned the likes of Nick Scruton and Jared Sammett's come in as well. You've got Riley on loan. It's quite an impressive starting lineup you've got, that, isn't it, at the minute?
Yeah, it's really healthy. We've got a lot of competition in the forwards, which in my time at the club, we've not always been really blessed with. We've got some real big experienced players as in size, vying for starting positions in the pack, and then we've got a little bit of competition in the outside backs, and that's what any squad needs. You need a healthy and fit squad, and I think that's going to be the key for all squads, but particularly ours, is keep everybody healthy and keep it competitive. And like I say, I'm confident in the squad that we've got. That the big challenge for us now is just to get to know how each of the plays and the little differences in each other's game and gelling, because we've all been sort of thrown together quite late, and that'll be the biggest test. Is we're certainly not the finished article, and it probably might not evolve like that till midway through the season. So a lot of hard work to do, but really exciting.
Now, Super League Review with Mark Wilson on Radio Yorkshire.
We heard there from Richie Mathers, Wakefield win. Rich, come on, we'll out you now. You're a Wakefield fan. They've won back-to-back games. You've got to be pretty pleased with that, haven't you?
Oh, the glory days are back, Mark. It's all good. 2 50-point victories in a week. It's fantastic. As a Wakefield fan, always think that the big grey cloud is somewhere around the corner. And I remember that game against Bradford, and I was there, and it was dreadful. And you just worry that kind of performance is around the corner again. But obviously that was the first game Jared Sammett was on the books for, so he wouldn't have learned all the plays and so on and so forth. I'm always glad when Wakefield has a scrum half or a half-back like Jared Sammett. I think we've been missing that since Danny Brough left. Big fan of Danny Brough. I like a maverick somewhere in the middle of the field for Wakefield, just to make things a little bit more exciting, because Wakefield at times in the past 10 years have played a lot of one-man rugby, and it's not pretty to watch. When you've got someone like a Brough or a Sammett, it makes things more exciting. It appears that's what's happening at the moment. I spoke to Talima Tautai last week. He says the spirit's fantastic in the squad. He comes across as a great character. Sunday against St Helens, very tough game, obviously still with the reduced capacity at Bellevue, so the fans need to get there and make a lot of noise. I can't wait to see Tautai versus Mossy Masoi, because that should be one of the clashes of the season.
Phil, Wakefield had financial difficulties last year, cut their cloth accordingly, offloaded some players. They have benefited from Bradford's misfortune. They've got in Scruton, they've got in Sammett. They were tipped to go down, Wakefield. They're doing all right at the minute, aren't they?
It was always going to be a slow start because their overseas signings didn't come till so late, but Peter Godinay's been the guy who I think is turning them around. As you say, Sammett's a bit of a maverick and a brilliant goal kicker, but is it three matches running Godinay's got an interception? He is the kind of guy that, again, sets a lead that you would want to follow. Scott Anderson's going to take time to bed in, but he's got pedigree. He's won a grand final. He is no mug. Chris Riley, getting him in on loan is another astute use of the loan market by a coach that knows how to wheel and deal. And this is the Wakefield of 2 years ago when the same thing happened, and most of the key names had to be shed, and they got in a mix and match side, and actually started that run that eventually ended up with them getting into the playoffs. So this is familiar territory, if you like, for Wakefield, and it was going to take time for them to bed in. I think the great game on the horizon for them is Good Friday against Castleford. I mean, why would you not want to be involved and part of that game? That if Castleford are still on a roll, Wakefield has started to emerge, that'll be a great game. That's what you want.
Yeah, a big local derby at Easter. I'm sure everyone will be looking forward. We're going to be there for that one. Live commentary right here on Radio Yorkshire at RLonRY if you want to get in touch. Richard A. Guy's doing a decent job, isn't he?
Yeah, the fact that, as you say, they had to shed players last season because of the financial troubles. I think the new owner, Chairman Michael Carter, comes across well whenever you see him speak. I think the best signing Wakefield made in the off-season, and this sounds ridiculous, was Kat Etherington, because you've got someone there as an advisor to the club who knows what she's doing. I think over the years at Wakefield, off the field, that has been missing, and they've got that experience there now. I feel more positive as a supporter for the future of Wakefield Trinity than I have for a long time. Whether that's misguided because it's happened before, we'll see, but at the moment things are looking positive, and that's always good.
They're not going down, are they, Wakefield? They'll be all right, won't they?
And I think, again, what you want as a fan is to see some kids coming through that are going to carry that badge. For somebody like Jordan Crowther, who's the first play. I mean, don't we all feel old? The first play was born after Super League started to be playing in Super League. He'll get a shot. They need to build from the bottom as well as getting guys at the top, and I think if they've got the resource to do that, they solve the ground capacity problem, which again will stop them spending money if they're not careful. Then they should be fine. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be looking upwards rather than downwards.
Okay, well, we've got plenty more to go. We haven't even talked about the Leeds Rhinos yet. We're looking through their victory over the Widnes Vikings. We'll also have a look at some of the other games as well from the weekend. We'll check in at Salford. They played Warrington. We'll have a look at Hull KR as well. They were up against the Wigan Warriors, of course, at RLonRY if you want to get in touch. We're also, in the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to be talking all things Championship and the Challenge Cup as well. The big draw tomorrow. Who are our Yorkshire teams going to get? Are one of our Yorkshire teams going to get to Wembley? It'd be nice to see one of them lift that famous trophy, wouldn't it? If you want to get in touch by email, you can do rugbyleague@radioyorkshire.co.uk, on the Twitter at RLonRY. We've got a bit of intrigue about Ryan Hall, a possible announcement regarding him tomorrow. Phil will give us his inside take on that one, I'm sure. And we'll look at everything and anything that you want to look at. It is your show. If you want to get involved, then please do.
Now, Super League Review with Mark Wilson on Radio Yorkshire.
Welcome back. The first hour rather flew by as we talked all things Castleford, Bradford, Huddersfield, Hull. We're going to talk as well about the Leeds Rhinos shortly. We also covered off, we spoke to Richie Mathers, didn't we, regarding the Wakefield Trinity Wildcats. Plenty more to come. We are also going to speak to Gareth Walker shortly about the Championships and the Challenge Cup. Before we do that, Phil, if I can just ask you regarding London, bottom of the table, what are your thoughts on them? Beaten well by Wakefield at the weekend.
There's one major issue here, I think, with London, and that is we cannot confuse the work that is going on in London and the South East with the club that is London Broncos that's playing in the professional arena. There has been some mismanagement at London and some lack of support from the game for Rugby League in London at the top flight level that shouldn't detract from the fact that some of the top players in Super League at the moment are people like Louis McCarthy-Scarsbrook, Dan Sargentson, Luke Dawn at Castleford. They've all had some input and made their name to a greater or lesser extent through being involved in London.
Michael Channing at Castleford now, forcing his way forward.
I just think we have an issue with players and the reservoir of quality players, and where those players are going to come from is an area like London, the South East. There are more kids playing in that area than there are in Leeds and there are in Wigan. You look at the champion schools, which again, we're all looking at the current Super League table. The last 2 winners at Wembley of the champion schools have been Howard of Effingham in Surrey and the Royal Grammar School at High Wycombe. They are beating teams like Castleford Academy. So there is no question that Rugby League can thrive in London. London Broncos have some unique and specific issues that the game will not address. One is that they're nomadic. The second is that they've probably got the wrong name. The third is that we don't put enough resource down there. Again, just small anecdotal evidence. I went down to the capital for the double-header World Cup semi-final by train. I normally drive, but we thought the matches were scheduled in such a way where it was far more easy to get a train on the morning and come back after the game. It's only when you arrive in a railway station in London and you get off a train that you realise how many competing attractions there are. Posters for films, posters for shows, posters for museums, people giving you out leaflets for restaurants. Never mind a sport they've never heard of. We haven't addressed the fact that the first thing we've got to do is shout loud about Rugby League so that London can benefit on the back of that. You go to a game at Wembley Stadium, you have a crowd there where there is a large proportion of people who don't normally go to Rugby League games at a time where we don't know where London are going to be playing. Who owns them? Who's going to be playing for them? We can't give out leaflets advertising season ticket details. We don't take representative games down there. We don't have our governing body down there. We're congratulating ourselves that we're bringing in sponsors to the sport at the moment. Our commercial department of the RFL is based in London. It's a very small office, but it's down there that the business is done. London sponsors are a firm called Selco. They're a nationwide business merchant. That is better than most Super League clubs have as a sponsor for a name. All of that we would throw out of the window on the basis of the fact that at the moment the Broncos have got the wrong people running the club.
Well, we're joined on the telephone by Gareth Walker, editor of Rugby League World and the RL correspondent of the Sunday People. We'll speak to him. We'll get his opinion on it in a minute. Phil, I just want to ask you quickly, if David Hughes had put the money he's putting into London, at Wakefield, at Bradford, at Castleford, I say he would have a top 4 team by now.
I think the other issue, again, I think you're right, but more of an issue is the fact that we've got loads of community clubs playing Rugby League in London on a Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Why on earth would you play your professional arm at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon and deny all those people the chance to come and see you? If you had more people going, if you had a better recruitment policy, if we weren't waiting until the very last minute to decide yet again who was going to be playing for the team, there is a real benefit that London have for the game of Rugby League if we treat London properly.
OK, Gareth, we'll get your opinion now. I know we're going to talk Challenge Cup and the Championship shortly, but London Broncos, are you for it or against it?
Well, I'm certainly for London Broncos. I mean, I haven't been able to hear all of your conversations, so apologies if I'm repeating any of it. But I mean, I'm certainly for London. My own thing, my thing has always been, I think all clubs should be treated equally. I think it should be on what happens on the field. Ultimately, that has always been my own big thing. And I'm just not sure at the moment it's doing London Broncos a great deal of good being a continuously losing team in Super League. So, I mean, perhaps if they had a year out of that competition and were able to just get a winning team back on the field, I think that could have a really big impact on people wanting to come and watch their club, because it's been so many years now since London had a winning side on the field. So that is going to get a lot of people disillusioned. You know, if they did take a step backwards, win some matches, you know, blood some more of these great young London talents that we've all seen and that are joining other clubs, I think that could actually revitalise the club in the long term and be better for them than be losing matches every weekend in front of 1,200 people in Super League.
Do you think they can survive getting relegated?
I find it very difficult to see that happening this year, to be honest. I've seen them a couple of times now, and it was always going to be hugely difficult with them starting so late. You know, the players weren't there for them to recruit, and it's a team that's really been thrown together. I'd be amazed if they managed to finish outside the bottom 2 this year.
OK, and Phil, as a club, do you think London would survive getting relegated? Do you think they could? Gareth said there he thinks they might benefit from dropping down. The question is, would they ever come back?
I don't think they would benefit. I think, again, if you it's what we were saying before about the counter attractions in somewhere like London. I think if they're not playing the top flight clubs, people will not go and watch them. You cannot. I don't think there's a base there you can build from. I just think it's too important a market for us. And again, we go back to the players we've mentioned. If the likes of Louis McCarthy, Scarsbrook and Dan Sargentson were still there, you're already talking about a better team than they've got on the field. The fact that they want to move away tells you that there's something wrong with the way that club is run in London. And again, we can't keep equating ourselves to the NRL, but when Melbourne got into trouble, the NRL didn't abandon them. They said, this is a really important strategic market that we're not really in at the moment, but the game, in terms of the television revenue it can get, the sponsorship it can get, needs Melbourne as an additional market. We're exactly the same with London. I just think we assume that London is the same as all the clubs in the north of England in the market that it's aiming at and the resources it needs to survive, and actually it is a completely different beast.
OK, well, no doubt be more of that, not only tonight but in the coming weeks. Gareth, we got you on to talk all things Challenge Cup. It was round 3 yesterday. I'm looking down at the results and I'm not seeing too many shocks. Who were the key performers, do you think?
Well, I think that the one performance that needs mentioning first is York City Knights certainly beating Whitehaven. That was the one shock that we can talk about, really, because York are in a lower division now, and Whitehaven the week before had gone and won at Dewsbury, arguably the form team apart from Lee in that competition. So that's a terrific effort from Gary Thornton's side. I saw them in a pre-season friendly against Sheffield. They've got a load of very good young players there. I mean, I know it is absolutely completely different from London, but York have had to take a step back this year and go down, and they've made a conscious effort to focus on local and a lot of young players in that squad, and it looks like Gary Thornton's got some really talented lads in there that could do well in Championship 1 this year.
Is life in the Championship, has it already changed, given the news that, from next season there's going to be some of those clubs can get the chance to earn a place in Super League? I just don't know. I look at the Championship over the last couple of seasons and feel it's got more and more competitive with every week that's gone by.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's having an impact already, to be honest. I mean, the big thing for the Championship clubs this year was the announcement that there's this, by their own standards, huge prize money on offer for first and second place this year. They're talking £500,000 for first and £450,000 for second, and that is a world away from what they've been receiving in central funding in recent years. So that's put a real emphasis on the league, and teams wanting to, the intensity at the top end of it, which has always been pretty good, to be fair. The strong clubs has always been good. I agree with it. Has gone up a notch already this year, and I think it will do towards the back end of the season again.
Do you worry about the impact that the big promotion carrot is going to have on any of the clubs? We're not going to go back to times where these clubs are spending money they haven't got, are we?
Well, I mean, I guess there's always the danger of that, but for me, the one common thing with, that happens between clubs getting in trouble is that they're poorly run. It's nothing to do with promotion and relegation or licence. It's in trouble in both systems, in both leagues. We've seen them in Super League and in Championship get in trouble during licensing. It's not something, to me, that's just restricted to promotion and relegation. So, yes, there will always be that danger, but only if the clubs are run poorly. If they're run sensibly and like a business, then I think they can do well in whichever system they're in. I'm
looking at teams from our area. I look at Doncaster. They're sitting 4th in the Kingston Press Championship now. 3 wins from their 4. They've got a new coach in Paul Cook, of course. They've really risen from the mire, haven't they, financially? They're in deep trouble. They stuck with their old coach, didn't they? And they've managed to get up. Now they've changed coach. Do you think they're an example to all the other clubs in that kind of level?
Yeah, and I really do. I've got a lot of admiration for Doncaster and Carl Hall in particular, who picked the club up when it went bust more than one time, didn't it? Doncaster had been a case over the years for getting themselves in trouble chasing things, and Carl Hall picked them up when they were right at the bottom, really. Right from the start, he said that this was going to be a slow burner. They made steady progress under Tony Miller, who was absolutely fantastic servant to the club over several years. Did it the right way. They managed to bring one, a real high-profile guy in Paul Cook, but even that was properly funded, and they had Paul working in the community and having other roles at the club to pay his wages effectively. And I think they've landed themselves now with a great guy in Paul who could take them on to the next level, and as you said, has started the year really promisingly.
There's been a disappointing start, hasn't there, for Sheffield Eagles? 2 defeats early on in the season for them. Yeah,
they've never been flying starters, Sheffield, under Mark Aston. He used to when the old Northern Rail Cup started the season after the beginning of the year, we almost used to treat it like friendlies, Mark, and they didn't play many pre-season friendly games. And while I'm not suggesting they've done that this year, they've kind of, been known in recent years for peaking at the back end of the season. I think Mark would probably concede that at the start of this year they were a bit light on numbers. I think they brought 3 loan players in now from Salford for the course of the season. They're going to announce another new signing tomorrow, and there'll be a couple more additions, I think, to come as well. I think when they get some more numbers on board, we'll see that Sheffield Eagles side back challenging the top 4 again before too long.
No surprise with the top 2 in the Championship table at the minute, Leigh and Featherstone. Them, along with Halifax, I'd have to say, to the outsider, the biggest names, biggest clubs in that division, aren't they, along with Sheffield? Yeah,
I think so. I think Leigh and Featherstone are kind of justifiably the favourites for the top 2. Halifax could well get involved. They've been up there in recent years, and they should be strong again. And this big carrot of the top 2 now means that I think clubs will look at the league, a lot more. I think that, getting in that top 2 is so financially rewarding this year. And with there being no promotion from the grand final or anything, the league campaign might almost be more important to some clubs this time.
We're seeing a growing trend now recently of players coming out of the Championship and starting to prove themselves at Super League level. I look at Liam Finn at Castleford as the latest one to do that. He's hardly a spring chicken, but he's proof, isn't there? There is life outside Super League, and there's some damn good players in that Championship.
Absolutely, and it's been a drum that people in the Championship, especially the coaches, have been banging for years, really. And it's only the last. There's always been a little steady trickle of players, but it does seem to be more recently. You mentioned Liam Finn. We've also had Alex Warm's impact at St Helens, alongside now Kyle Amor, who started at Whitehaven. Chris Hill has gone up. Zach Hardacre went to Leeds, has trodden that path. And Darryl Powell, let's not forget, it's not just players. Darryl Powell had 4 years at Featherstone. Everyone was talking about how good a coach he was, but he didn't get that opportunity. He's got it now at Castleford, taking it with both hands, and I think there's talent on and off the field in that competition.
And I'm going to put you on the spot. Who do you think is going to come in the top 2 then of the regular season in the Championship?
I'm sticking with Featherstone and Leigh. Leigh recruited, I think, better than anybody else. I think they had 5 players that came out of Super League. They managed to keep their own best from last year, and I think they've got a big enough squad to be consistent over the year. Featherstone, I think when they play like John Bastian wants them to play, they've got a bit of a change after Darryl Powell left. I think with the personnel they've got as well, they'll be more consistent than the other teams, and they'll be the 2 for me.
Both of them seem to have the right infrastructure in place. Leigh have obviously got the Leigh Sports Village, and Featherstone have done a lot, or spent a lot of money, or they've put a lot of effort, I think a lot of volunteers involved in upgrading their stadium as well, so they're trying to get things right off the field as well, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm full of admiration for both clubs. Featherstone have done it over a real long period of time. They've invested a lot of money without the central funding at Super League clubs into having good junior structures and scholarship schemes, and now they've got this terrific centre of excellence, as you've mentioned, the stand being built by volunteers. And Leigh are following suit now. They've got this. They've got an under-20 side packed full of local young players and teams underneath that as well, and it's a real hotbed of an area league. So, both those clubs, and, we should mention Halifax as well. They're running a reserve team this year as well. I think these clubs are understanding the importance of youth development, and it's great to see, really, in traditional rugby league areas.
Good stuff. Gareth, we thank you for your time. Hopefully we will speak to you again soon, and we might just hold you to that Leigh Featherstone prediction come the end of the season. Thanks a lot, Gareth.
No problem at all. Nice to speak to you.
Cheers, mate. Thank you for that. Phil, anything to add on that? I've got to be honest, I want to put it on record now. I do worry that teams are going to chase the big carrot, and we're going to end up going backwards a little bit. I've got to say that.
I wouldn't contradict anything Gareth says about the Championship because he is an expert. But I think there are probably 2 massive issues here. One is that 2 clubs at the end of this season are going to be so far ahead of all the other Championship clubs that the danger of giving only 2 of them £500,000 and £450,000 means that they will recruit all the best players from the other teams in the Championship, and that is to ready them to be competitive against the teams coming down from Super League. So actually all you're doing is divorcing the rest of the Championship. To me, that is a real worry. You're instituting the opportunity for 2 clubs to try and get up to Super League level. Although, again, there is an issue about it's only £500,000 and £450,000, whereas the Super League clubs are getting still 3 times that. That's one issue. I think we are in danger of fracturing a very good product in the Championship by only offering it to 2 clubs. The other danger with that is I think there are 4 clubs that are going to be chasing it. 2 of them aren't going to make it. 2 of them are banking on making it. If they don't make it, we're back in this boom and bust scenario that promotion and relegation does bring. I think all of the players he mentioned that are making such a fantastic impact on Super League, they're all of an age. They're not young players. They're people who have served an apprenticeship. They're in their mid-20s. Liam Finn is slightly older than that. Zach Hardacre is a bit of a special talent, but he was younger than that. He went into a different environment. But I think there are players down there, but they're players who are beyond the age of 19, where, again, we're throwing out players from Super League, and there is a danger that with not having enough players, that we're getting rid of some of them. The Doncaster scenario is interesting. I think Doncaster are the force they are at the moment because of their link with Hull. I think Paul Cook is doing a job at Hull. There is a dual registration there that works because Doncaster are training with Hull. The players that are coming down are Doncaster and Hull are deliberately playing exactly the same way so that they fit in almost seamlessly, and I think that works. It comes back yet again to why did we bring in licensing in the first place in 2005? And for all the rights and wrongs of licensing that we'd need another 4 hours to talk about, it was because Leigh got promoted. And not only did Leigh do a disservice to Super League when they finally got promoted, but it very nearly was the end of Leigh putting them in that environment. What's going to change? Unless everybody is spending the full salary cap in Super League, unless there are enough players to go round the number of teams that you have in Super League, we're just shuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic.
Wow, strong stuff. Rich, what do you think? You're against promotion and relegation, I think, aren't you? So what do you think about these?
That's me, public enemy number 1 then across...
I don't think you're alone. I think it'd be fair to say that.
I've just drawn on my copy of the Rugby League Express, I've drawn a line between Featherstone and Leigh at the top of the Championship, swapping them with Catalans and London. Now, this is no disrespect to Leigh or Featherstone, so my family are Featherstone fans. I'll be excommunicated. But is that, for the game of Rugby League, the best thing to happen? I don't know. We talk about dual registration. Is there perhaps... We talk about bringing back the alliance competition. What's the problem? You're looking at me, Mark.
I'm thinking we've got that many cans of worms open now. I'm not sure which one to try and close first.
I'm not going to say mergers because that's not.
You just said it, Phil. You just said that word.
Mergers is a really interesting thing to talk about because when mergers were, if you look back at what was proposed in 1995. With the benefit of where we are now 19 years later, there is a lot more sense to what was being proposed at the time. But what it missed was it was an either-or principle, that you either merged or died. And actually what we could do now, and let's take Cumbria as an example, because obviously we won't upset anybody around this table if we talk about Cumbria. The fact is, you could have, if there are enough people there and businesses to support it, which is a separate issue, I'm not sure there are, a Cumbrian team in Super League, and you still retained Workington and Whitehaven and possibly some vestiges of the amateur game in Carlisle as entities in their own right, but playing in the Championship, what you've got is somebody like Kyle Amor who wouldn't have to leave the county. What we're talking about as well, as if we do it right, is the fact that the London-based players wouldn't have to leave London. And actually that's not a merger, that's creating a new entity that perhaps Super League would play on a Friday night, your Championship teams would play on a week or a Saturday or a Sunday. You can support both, you can be part of both. A player can start at Egremont Rangers, can graduate to Whitehaven, can then go on to play for whatever the Cumbrian Super League team is. But everybody in that region is buying into the fact that they're seeing top-level rugby league, because Whitehaven will never be able to compete with Wigan and Leeds.
I'm going to just say rugby union here, but I've been to New Zealand. They do exactly the same thing in New Zealand, don't they? They have their provincial championship, and then they have their super 15 teams where they pick the best from everywhere.
And they do it in the NRL. And the other thing as well about rugby union is the fact that what is working now, there isn't a lot working for them. We shouldn't be blinded by the fact that they have some real administrative problems at the moment. They're going through restructures in their lower leagues where everybody is in revolt. They're looking to bring in licensing at their top level that we're saying we should be ditching. That said, the teams that would work, and the classic example is in this very county, is the concept of Yorkshire Carnegie. That is a tacit admission that the individual clubs in Yorkshire will never be able to take on the traditional rugby union areas, and the only way they can do it is county-wide.
Wow, a big. We'll sure we'll visit this again. We're going to keep a regular contact with the Championship as well. Hopefully the teams that are in there will do it the right way, and they can get into a position where they are ready to challenge for Super League. We'll keep an eye on. We'll speak to Gareth on a regular basis. Right now, though, you're listening to Super League Review on Radio Yorkshire. We've had a few tweets in at RLonRY. If you want to get involved, please do. If you want to email us, rugbyleague@radioyorkshire.co.uk is the Twitter handle you need.
Now, Super League Review with Mark Wilson on Radio Yorkshire.
Right, let's get back to something tried and tested. We're going to talk Leeds Rhinos, Phil. Back to Friday night, and our first ever live commentary came from Headingley Carnegie, where Leeds thrashed the Widnes Vikings, didn't they? Quite comprehensive in the end, and this is what it sounded like right here on Radio Yorkshire.
Ball goes towards the middle of the pitch here. Peacock out the back for Sinfield. Delayed pass for Hardacre. They've got the overlap. Could be a chance. Ben Jones-Bishop dives in. Has he marked his first Leeds start of the season with his try? He has. Scores in the corner. Leeds pressure tells. They lead at Headingley by 4 points to 0. Centre field, Burrow, hands on his thighs, looks and goes. Dummies to his right, steps out of a tackle, almost had the gap there, but he's tackled 5 metres away. Widnes struggling here. Can Leeds land another blow here as they move the ball out to the right hand side? Ben Jones-Bishop going to score his second try. Might not have been in the team before, and he's in tonight, and he's in at the double. 2 tries for Ben Jones-Bishop. Leeds lead by 8 points to 0. No, they're going to run it now. They've got numbers over this side. Here's Watkins. Watkins has got Ben Jones-Bishop outside him. Jones-Bishop foot race for the corner. He's got a man on the inside. Kevin Sinfield scores. Leeds at their best. Superb try. They moved the ball down this right-hand side, and Sinfield was there on the inside to back it up. Superb try. Leeds are home and host here. They lead 26-0.
We'll hear more about that game shortly. We'll speak to Phil about it as well. Let's find out what Brian McDermott, the Leeds coach, and Dennis Betts, the Widnes coach, made of it as well.
Well, he's done what he's probably planned to do, Bish. Did he score a try?
2 tries.
2 tries, there you go. And laid on another one with a nice break. So, yep. He's certainly put his hand up, and it will make whatever decision we make the following week and the following weeks after that difficult ones. But as I've said at the start of the year, this isn't about whether Ben Jones-Bishop plays instead of Ryan Hall or Tom Briscoe. We'll roll that squad about. People get game time. 20 rounds in, and then it starts to bite, doesn't it? Team selection for players and who's missing and all that. But at this early stage of the season, if you're in or out the team, it won't be for too long. But good effort, Bishop. I have no intention to send him anywhere just yet. But at the same time, there's a desire from both him and us that he plays. So we're not farming Bish out, and if he's there or thereabouts with us, we'll keep him. But in the next coming weeks, again, when he starts to ask a question, if he's not getting enough game time, he's going to need to play somewhere. But if we go send him to another Super League club, we're losing for a month, and I don't like that. I don't know that serves. I don't know that rule serves. I know there'll be something in there that will cater for this cynical version of loaning people out. It doesn't really cater for the real reason why you loan players out. A bit like your 19-man squads, where you've got to name a 19-man squad before, and it's the reason that was put in place because of reactions to something negative that happened. I'm off on a rant there, but the rule about the month loan, I'm not sure. I can understand that you don't want to be loaning players out here, there and everywhere, but it doesn't really help anybody because everybody's wary of sending them out for a month.
It is a tough scoreline. I think we were second best tonight. I thought it was a really tight first half. I thought we could have got a couple of tries on the board, but I think the character that Leeds showed in that first half defensively as well, preventing us getting over try line. It's got a couple of tries in the corner, and we came in at half time, and with the wind behind us, felt not overly confident, but we felt we could get over the try line again and build some pressure. And it was tough to take in that second half, but the quality of Leeds really shone through. I think that's probably the best they've played all year in the second half. I thought some of the tries they scored were fantastic. I know that's something sitting here and saying it, but a couple of their shift play tries were very, very good, and then a bit of footwork, and they didn't do anything we weren't expecting. They do it very, very well, and they've got some good players in their team. And one thing I will say is that, like I say, I don't think we ever believed that we were as good as people thought we were after 3 wins, but we ain't as bad as that scoreline dictates. So it's a lesson learned and something that we have to keep moving forward with. Yeah, we had a couple of bumps and bruises, but I don't think Leeds got away with it scot-free. I think they had a couple of knocks and bangs. So it was a very tough game. I think Leeds played very well.
Leeds played very well, said Dennis Betts. We were all 3 of us were there on Friday night. Phil, we'll come to you first. It was very tight for 40 minutes, but Widnes failed to gather the kick-off second half, and Leeds, to be fair, ran away with it, didn't they?
Everybody's focused on the strike threat that Leeds have got. The 3-into-2 wingers conundrum, and the fact that across their entire back line they've now got some really exciting talent that is a throwback to traditionally what watching rugby league at Headingley has been about. But actually everything comes from the fact that they've got the most meanest defence in Super League. They have only conceded 8 tries in 5 games, and what they've tended to do this season is wear teams down in the first half, and then allow themselves to play in the second half, and it was a classic example of that. To have only conceded 46 points, which I think, again, looking at the league table, the next best is 70. That's almost twice as much. That tells you where the strength of Leeds is at the moment. Yes, they've got some wonderful flying machines that will score you spectacular tries. We saw a couple of those on Friday night. But what they've got there at the moment is a real defensive mentality, and they're building everything on the back of that.
They've almost got an embarrassment of riches, haven't they, Leeds? He was talking there about loaning players out. Obviously got Liam Sutcliffe at the Bradford Bulls, short term. Ben Jones-Bishop being linked with moves away, but then he comes in and scores 2 great tries. I mean, there's a lot of teams. I think if Ben Jones-Bishop became available for transfer tomorrow, I think there'd be 13 Super League clubs would gladly have him. And
I think, again, you've got to look at 3 young kids that are learning their trade at London that Leeds have loaned out as well. I think it is this talent production line that values young players, and it brings up the question again as to how do they get the necessary level of experience. Liam Sutcliffe is too good to be playing in the under-19s, or he's too old. Leeds' dual registration club was Hunslet. He's too good to be playing in Championship 1, with the greatest respect. That is not going to further his development. So, yes, he should go to a Super League team. And I think, again, we talked about Huddersfield not allowing Mullally to play against Bradford. I guarantee that if Sutcliffe is still at Bradford when they play Leeds, he will be playing against Leeds. They want their players to get that kind of exposure. By the same token, you look at recruitment this year, Leeds have added 2 world-class players. They didn't have a bad year last year. Yes, they didn't win anything, but they had a lot of injuries. They gave 6 teenagers debuts. They finished 3rd, and they bought, on the back of that, a world-class current England winger to add competition among the backs, where last year Joe Vickery was playing in a World Club Challenge, which, to the greatest respect to him, isn't in Tom Briscoe's class. And they brought in Paul Ayton, which has changed the dynamic around the play the ball. They are now incredibly solid in the middle of the field when he's out there, but his game is to get the ball in the hands of the guys that can make things happen, which he is incredibly good at. The guy who didn't get any credit on Friday night, who should have done, is involved in every try, was Danny Maguire.
Yeah, he had a good game. Almost got over for the 250th try in his, I won't say his old legs, he's a lot younger than I am, but they just wouldn't quite get him over the line. Interesting you say about Ayton. I thought when he came on again in the second half, that's when Leeds started to score their points, because he was bouncing out of tackles and he was getting the ball out of there as well.
And they can just play differently. You've either got Rugborough sniping around, or you've got Paul Ayton actually bashing them up the middle, or you've got them both on at some stage in the game. And actually, by that time, the opposition don't know where they're being hit. And I think, again, that variety is obviously Leeds' strength this year. The interesting thing will be what announcement are they going to make about Ryan Hall tomorrow, and whether that changes the dynamic.
What do you think? Is he going or is he signing?
Well, it's one of 2 things, isn't it? He's either I mean, again, the conspiracy theorists will say Gary Hetherington's just come back from Australia. Yoel Yaoye has just announced his retirement. Brisbane, where Gary spent a lot of his time, are looking for a winger. Ryan's at an age where he's going to cash in and go to the NRL. The other argument says Ryan's got a young family. He's very happy at Leeds. Leeds have got this habit at the start of a season of tying up their key players long term. He is seen as a key player. He's the next one in the leadership group, along with Carl Ablett, who they've just signed for another 5-year deal. Yes, his contract runs out in 2017, so you really are looking ahead if you're going to tie him up even further than that. Because Leeds have announced it, I suspect that it is probably going to be a contract extension.
OK, well, we'll find out tomorrow. Richard Widnes competed well for 40 minutes, but he just weren't good enough. I know Phil spoke about the mean defence of the Leeds Rhinos. Widnes had an awful lot of ball inside the Leeds 20 at times, and they... Truth be told, they never looked like scoring. It was actually a bit of a lucky try when they got one at the end.
I think, as Danny Spetz mentioned in the press conference audio we just heard there, he thought in the second half, when they had the wind at their back, they might have a chance, but they didn't do anything with the ball to suggest they would, and that was the key to the game. Leeds just shut them down time and time again. As you say, their defence was absolutely superb. Kind of feel sorry for Widnes because they just didn't have a chance. Was it the kick-off in the second half, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Leeds got the ball straight away from him, and you thought... No, not tonight for Widnes, and Leeds just powered on in that second half. I'm sure, as Danny Spetz said, it was actually a great line at the end, wasn't it? We're not as good as people were saying we were, but we're not as bad as we were tonight.
Yeah,
I'm sure Widnes will be fine as the season goes.
I think that's a fair reflection. Phil, I know there's a big gap between Leeds and Widnes are not going to be winning any grand finals soon, but are they a side that has proved that the franchising idea can work? They finished bottom of the table in year one. They improved last year. Signs are they're improving. They are, that I presume that was the model the Rugby League had in mind, that they would allow teams to build, and Widnes are doing that.
There are two classic examples of why licensing, if it's administered properly, works. And one of the things we should say right at the very beginning is it's not licensing or promotion relegation. Widnes got promoted under licensing. It's what kind of licensing system you want. Personally, I think if we made a mistake with licensing, it was to have it for 3 years. We should have made it 2. But what Widnes have done, in the knowledge that they wouldn't then immediately go back down, and they didn't have to go out and buy a team that would merely keep them up, is yes, they went and bought some players that you would say might have been questionable recruits, but on the back of slowly building, they've got Kevin Brown, who looked like the only player who might pose some questions for Leeds. They've taken Joe Mellor, who was surplus to requirement at Wigan, and they're turning him into a good Super League player. They've now got Danny Tickle, who is a very good goal kicker, which actually is very important. You're going to be involved in some close games during the season. They're going to be won or lost by having a very good goal kicker. They've also got, dare we say it, a plastic pitch. So when they play at home, that is an advantage. They've won their first 3 games of the season. They've all been at home. Their next 2 games are at home. No opposing coach is going to use that as an excuse. Otherwise they'll be told to man up. But the truth is, it does make a difference. The ball bounces differently. Joints that are susceptible and weak, older players are not playing. You look at the teams that Wigan send over there. They'd rest players deliberately because of the pitch. Because of that, Widnes are building a club. Great. I'd rather see a club like Widnes sustainable in the top flight and gradually getting better every year, that they can bring some young players in. Jack Owens on the wing, great young prospect. Alex Gerrard, I thought, was their best player. A kid who has waited 2 or 3 years to be given an opportunity. Reece Hanbury came out of Crusaders. He would get into most Super League teams. He's a threat. But they can do that safe in the knowledge that they've had 3 years where they knew they weren't going to be relegated. So, yes, it's a model that works. The other one is Caplan.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I go back to Castleford. They came back from the Championship, didn't they? And Terry Mattison blooded a lot of young kids. And, all right, it's taken a while for them to get going. They sit today second in Super League. Everything is buzzing about them now. We're going to lose that, aren't we? In 12 months' time, it's going to be gone. It's going to be panic buying again.
Look at it the other way, and let's say, through no fault of their own, Castleford have lost the first 5 games. Let's say that, unfortunately for them, they were involved in a relegation scrap. The whole way they're running that club at the moment, the priorities would change. They would be going out buying the kind of players that they hope would keep them up, and the young kids that are being given a chance. The Mark Sneeds, who can't get into Salford at the moment, but is getting valuable game time, is winning the matches. He's getting a window where he can show his wares. if they'd lost all 5 games, Brett Seymour would be playing for Castleford.
Maybe he would. He's without a club, isn't he, at the moment? So we'll see what happens.
Catalan need a half-back.
Yeah, they do. We'll speak about Catalan shortly. Leeds, they've got London at the weekend. We're there on Friday night. Apologies, that is the only Friday night game this weekend, isn't it? And then a big game against St Helens a week after, Phil. That's going to be real. I know we've got Wigan Warrington this week, but I think both are not quite on form yet. We could possibly have 2 unbeaten teams going at it at Langtree Park. That should be a cracker, shouldn't it?
It'll be a signature game for how Super League is travelling this year. I think we saw a bit of that with the Huddersfield Leeds game. I thought that was a high intensity. I thought that was a game that kept you gripped right until the end. We won't even talk about whether we should have Golden Point or not, because we haven't got another 3 weeks left with the programme. But I think that we shouldn't look too far ahead of them ourselves. Yes, Leeds should beat London, and I think Leeds will probably allow some of their fringe players to get a little bit of game time, and they'll rest. I'd be surprised if Jamie Peacock, for example, plays this week. He deserves a rest. Kevin Sinfield's been getting the last 10 minutes off of games. Again, you'd be looking, if they're far enough ahead, to rest some of your key players in preparation for St Helens. I think Saints have got an interesting game at Wakefield. There's no guarantee they'll win that. They've got 3 key injuries that came out of Luke Walsh is the main one. He's been absolutely sensational this year. He may not play against Wakefield. He may not play against Louis McCarthy. Scarsbrook could be having a 3-game ban. He's up in front of the disciplinary. He may miss the Leeds game. So I think we shouldn't build up too much this week of a game that's in a fortnight's time. But if we get to that point where they're both informed teams, that is going to be an absolute belter.
Super League Review with Mark Wilson on Radio Yorkshire.
Yeah, you are listening to Radio Yorkshire. At RLonRY is the Twitter handle you need. Get in touch. Give us a shout. It is only week 1 of our show, and we will be, taking on board what you guys think, what you guys want to talk about as well. I think we've shown tonight that in an hour and 40 minutes there's too much to talk about, really. But we have still got one of our teams to look at now, and that is in the shape of Hull KR, who we've mentioned a couple of times tonight. Just 1 point for them from their 5 games, and whilst they are competing with teams, they're not winning at the moment. Another defeat at the weekend, Wigan 34, Hull Kingston Rovers 20, and they've got a huge game this weekend. But what did Craig Sandercock make after that Wigan match?
We had a couple of real good opportunities there in the second half, and we didn't take them. And Wigan, to their credit, took theirs, and that's the difference.
Yeah, I mean, you spoke about, playing in spells as well. How pleasing was it to get, a 70-minute performance as well, and although it's not set up full 80?
Yeah, we completed a lot harder today, there's no doubt about it, and there's a lot of positives to take, and, we scored some pretty classy tries, but, at the end of the day, in the second half, we had some golden opportunities, and as I just said, we failed to take them. Wigan took every single one of theirs, and that was the difference between the teams tonight.
Yeah, Chris Keating looks like to be pulling the strings again now. Putting a good performance tonight. That combination seems to be clicking as well now with Burns.
Yeah, it's getting there slowly. I was pretty happy with both the halves tonight. We're still a long way to go, and we're training hard. Obviously, Travis didn't have a pre-season because of his shoulder injury, so the two of them only just started working together literally a week or two before the competition, so it's a work in progress, and they're getting there slowly, and the boys just got to learn, when you're playing the top sides, in fact when you're playing on any side, you just got to take your opportunities, and as I said, we had a real golden one there, and through a forward pass it would have been a try, and Wigan went length of the field and scored, and that's the difference.
I mean, ill discipline as well in the last 10-15 minutes as well could have cost you side, 2 penalties down in Wigan and give you them possession. You can't give the champions possession, I suppose.
No, you can't, and I need to have a good look at that in the video because, there's 2 sides to every story, I suppose, and a couple of my boys are saying some things happened to them, so I need to have a good look at the video before I cast too many, aspersions on anyone.
The effort's there, the commitment's there, but what can seal, the first victory for Rovers this season?
Yeah, I think it's just what I said. It's about taking opportunities at this level. This is first grade rugby league. You're playing against the side that's won the competition last season, and you got to take opportunities, and we didn't, and Wigan did, and that was the only difference I saw between the 2 sides tonight.
Any thoughts on Gardner's first appearance tonight?
Yeah, I thought he was solid, and he's been a pleasure to to coach during the week, and his talk, was really good. So, really pleased with 80.
And does it make next week's game against Bradford a must-win for you and the team?
Every game's a must-win. Every game we play, it's a must-win. So it's no difference to tonight or round one. Every game for us is a must-win.
Every game is must-win, says Craig Sandercock. Well, we've just been talking off-air there, chaps. Phil, he's got Bradford and Wakefield at home. Then they have to go to Warrington and they play Hull. 4 games, I think, are going to decide his future, aren't they?
It always gets to Easter and we're talking about Craig Sandercock might be going home. They have had a really tough first set of fixtures. They have played all the top teams, or they will have done. The conundrum was always going to be, how do you replace the irreplaceable? Michael Dobson was so much of what they did and how they did it, that there was always going to... I mean, Chris Keating may well be the answer, but it's not going to happen overnight. He's got to learn a new way of playing. He's got to play with his teammates. Again, the British game needs British halfbacks. We've got Hull KR playing with 2 Aussie halfbacks. I'm not sure that you can truly build a club with the key positions filled with overseas players. They bought big with Michael Wayman, but he had an injury cloud over last season. He barely played for St George. Yes, he's been an Origin player, so was Justin Poore, but with the greatest respect to him, he didn't set the world on fire at Wakefield. So, sometimes you've got to look at your recruitment, and they lost Richard Beaumont, who at the moment isn't playing in the St Helens team, but they could see something in him. Again, goes back to a lot of what we've talked about. How do we keep the players that are the young, talented players that are generated within an area in that area? And I would feel a little bit happier about the direction Hull KR are going in if they were going down the line of a Castleford or a Hull, saying, yes, we understand that now there is relegation and possibly the emphasis has changed a little bit, but they've bought a lot of overseas players this year and they still haven't won a game. You may as well bring your youngsters through and on. They've just played Wigan, who had Scott Taylor in the ranks. How would he have gone playing for Hull KR? They've lost the second half 20-0. So yes, it might be about taking your chances, but they were in the game and it went away from them. If there was a team I was worried about at this stage of the season, which is far too early to say, they're going to have a chairman who is scrutinising everything they're doing on the basis of the fact that their finances are geared to having to stay in Super League, it would be Hull KR. And if they did lose on Sunday against Bradford, and there was only a point between Bradford and Hull KR, bearing in mind Bradford have had 6 deducted, I think Craig Sandercock might feel hot breath on the back of his neck.
Richard, what do you think? They are struggling, aren't they, the Rovers, at the minute?
League table doesn't lie, apart from in the case of Bradford, obviously, with a points deduction, but 5 games, 1 draw, all they've got to show for. You've got to be concerned if you're a Hull Kingston Rovers fan. We mentioned earlier the game against Bradford on Sunday. You listen to both coaches, we've heard them both tonight, both losing to teams who won trophies last year. And although Francis Cummings sounded slightly down, you can kind of understand why he is, but you also can feel in his voice and the words of his players as well, there's a great spirit at Bradford. Craig Sandercock just sounded really down in that press. I don't know if he's like that all the time, perhaps, but it's just... If I were a player, if I were a supporter of one of those clubs, I would feel a lot more positive, despite the fact my team's got -2 points, going down to Odsal, than I would be going to New Craven Park. Or the KC Light Force Stadium, whatever it's called these days. I would be very concerned if I was a Hull Kingston Rovers fan ahead of Sunday's game.
OK, well, we'll find out, won't we, at the weekend where Craig Sandercock will stand. I want to move on now and, actually, just quickly we'll address a tweet. David, Hookie82 on Twitter has just tweeted it. He can't have been listening earlier. He said, how do you think Lee Radford will go at Hull FC quickly? Phil, do you think he's going to be a success?
Yeah, I think he's changing the work ethic, but it takes time. And I think what he's trying to achieve by going more local, by putting the pride and the passion back in the side. We said it earlier in the show. You look at the teams that have done that, the likes of the Wigans and the Leeds and the St Helens. They didn't win things straight up. You don't go from a standing start to winning. You build gradually. You remain patient. The big positive for him at the weekend was that although his team lost, the opposing coach said that actually they should have won. So there's stuff to build on there. If everybody remains patient and Hull as a city can find a British halfback, they'll be doing all right.
Well, we'll find out again how he gets on. David, thanks for your tweet tonight at RLonRY. If you want to get involved, you're more than welcome along. We caught up with Leon Price on Friday night after his team lost again at St Helens. Are Catalan becoming the new crisis club of Super League? We'll get Phil's thoughts on that in a minute, but let's hear from Leon Price right now.
Last week we were pretty embarrassing with our effort and performance, so we had to put a better show up tonight. I thought we tried a lot harder.
It's been tough for you over the last few weeks. Is this the toughest period you've ever had in your career?
Yeah, easily, yeah. I've always played at clubs that have always been challenging for titles, and you know, we've had a warning from the owners and from the press, so I had to respond tonight.
And you very much responded tonight. You tried to put it together, but you're up against a really good Saints side tonight, arguably the best in the competition you faced so far.
Yeah, they're the best. They're the best team so far. They're setting the pace. So we've got to follow. Everybody's got to follow suit. But it's a long season. There's 20 odd rounds left to go. So still time for everybody to catch up.
Is there any chance you can divulge on what was said during meetings with the players and owners, or will that remain private for everyone?
It's always remained private, but you know, things are done differently in France to what they've done in England and Australia. So it's probably something for people like myself. It's very different to what I'm used to.
Yeah, it's something that something's inside me seems that you might not necessarily be all that happy with. But has it been at least above board, and it sounds honest at the very least, from their point of view?
Yeah, it's been honest. Just obviously, honest things get said, and you got to respond from there.
Is life in France okay apart from that, though? Are you still loving the lifestyle at the very least?
It's all right. At the end of the day, I'm there to win rugby matches, and the living side of it comes second. So when you're losing every week, it's hard to be happy.
Hey, you have got home games coming up though, and off the back of that performance, there's every chance that things might just be looking up from now on.
We need the same kind of effort and commitment from each other, yeah, definitely.
But having said that, the commitment and the effort, it's all very well and good, but when you've 11 players missing, that must be unbelievably difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult, but that's rugby, innit? That's life, and when things are hard, you can't roll over, can you? You've got to keep on going and keep on trying to win games. So it's like, that's what it's about. It's not, it's easy. Everything's easy when things are going good and you're winning every game week in, week out. It's not a test. That's not a test of your character. And when things are hard, and you've got 11 players out and you're getting warnings and that, then that's a test of your character.
You're still getting support though, aren't you? I mean, there was support that came over here tonight.
We've got great support. Yeah, we've got great support tonight, and I thought we repaid their support by having a little dig.
And some of the players on the fringes came in tonight. I thought Garcia had a pretty decent game coming off the bench. Elwar showed his skill as a hooker as well.
I thought them two we mentioned were two of our standout players who deserve massive raps, so I think you're completely right.
How big a miss is Scott Giroux?
Well, Scott's a quality player, but I thought Thomas Bosk played outstanding tonight, tough as always, and he's probably French's best ever player, France's best ever player, so I think he deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah, it does look as though it will turn around, hopefully, in the weeks to come, and hopefully you get your playoff bid back on track, because that's where you want to be.
It's a long season. It's a long season, man. Like I say, we've got 12 players to come back. Well, I remember in 2008, I think with Saints, we lost his first 3 matches, and after that we won 12 on bounce. So things can turn around.
Just got to keep your fingers crossed and work hard on the training.
Just keep working hard, yeah.
Got to keep working hard, says Leon Price. They're going to have to work hard. They got Huddersfield this week, then they go to Wigan the week after. Phil Caplan, our Catalan Super League's new crisis club.
Well, we said there's always one team that overachieves, is the bolter at the start of the season. That's Castleford. That means somebody has to be displaced. That, at the moment, is Catalan. Again, you talk about replacing the near irreplaceable. We've just spoken about how difficult it's been for Hull KR to cope with the loss of Michael Dobson. Scott Giroux 2 years ago was the best player in the competition. To lose him and his influence and not be able to replace him like for like is very, very difficult. But they've also lost Remy Casti, and I think he was the heart and soul of the team. The first French player to to make the dream team, not the first Caplan player, but the first French player. Wasn't just that he's a great player, good enough to now be a World Club champion with the Sydney Roosters, but actually you couldn't imagine if he was on the field that it would be anything other than at least a few go-forwards in every set, and they seem to have been lacking that. That said, Jason Battieri had a brilliant debut season. He had a complete knee reconstruction. They had 11 players out at St Helens. You're not going to win many games at a place like Langtree Park Stadium if you've got 11 of your first choice. They're bringing through some really exciting talent. Morgan Escaray, arguably Young Player of the Year last year. They're very difficult to beat at home. It's an intimidating environment. So they've got, again, they're another team that, for some quirk of the fixture list, seem to have only played one home game out of 5 rounds. It's a difficult ask for them at the moment. Yes, they will get better. I think their issue, again, is a little bit like we were talking about Craig Sandercutt. It may well be that Lauren Freycinet is a very good coach, but the demeanour sometimes he gives out is a little bit dour. And I think you're talking again about a team where flair is their natural ally, and for some reason it's being knocked out of them. Just to throw a name into the mix, I would say that if they are going to make a coaching change, and I'm an advocate for stability, I think that the most successful teams have got really stable behind-the-scenes management. But if they were, and you were to say somebody like Justin Morgan was available, who has obviously got a track record at Toulouse, he knows the French game, he speaks a little bit of French, but more than that, he's a charismatic figure. He can draw people together. They just seem to me a very disparate bunch at the moment. When we were over there the other week, it looked like there were cliques, and when things aren't going right, Brent Webb unfortunately has a chronic back injury. He probably won't play for them again. Giroud probably won't play for them again. He's out for at least 4 months. He'll go home. Will he come back? Probably not. Louis Anderson hasn't been able to do a full pre-season. He's had to go and come back. They've just had every possible disruption you could possibly have. I just think Super League needs them, and I hope that there is a revival not too far around the corner.
They have chucked in a few bad years, haven't they? Finished bottom, I think, on occasion. So what do you think, Rich? Can they turn it around?
I hope so, because like Phil, we need a strong France in the sport of rugby league, and they were so disappointing in the World Cup, let alone as a club side, the Catalans. I know there's historic reasons why rugby league is not as strong as it was in France, but we need, as a sport, to make them a viable international opponent for England, for Australia, for New Zealand, because we need that strength at the top level. There's all this talk when players go to rugby union and the drain is not as big as people would have you believe. One player a year does not constitute a big drain of talent, even if he is one of the bigger names in the sport. If there were a France team who could compete with England, and maybe England have to lose, I know people thought, I don't want to do that, but if there is a French national team who can compete with England, can compete with Australia and New Zealand, it makes the sport better overall. We need that international dimension. The Catalans bring that to the Super League. How many people will say, we don't want Super League, don't want Super League in France, don't want Catalans in Super League, but love that trip every year down to the south of France, watching some rugby league in the sunshine. It's an added benefit, but certainly for the sport of rugby league, Catalans, like London, very, very important.
I think you make one very other interesting point there, that there is a World Cup hangover. The team that provided the most number of players in the World Cup was Caplan. They were always going to start this season slowly and have injuries. Losing Ian Henderson is massive as well for 3 months with a broken arm.
Yeah, it is. It is. You are listening to Radio Yorkshire at RLonRY on the Twitter if you want to get in touch.
Super League Review with Mark Wilson on Radio Yorkshire.
I think it's only fair that we go back to where we started this evening. I think some Cas fans may have joined us. If they joined us a little bit late, we did really go through their efforts in the opening half an hour of the season. We are covering your game. Salford against Castleford is live on Sunday. And just in case you missed it before, we're going to play it again. Have a listen to this, Cas fans.
it's fantastic, wasn't it? Again, the club's growing, and you can see that. The Speckies have been fantastic. When there's a group there, you couldn't get them out of the stadium. Just had to be ushered out while I was talking to Sky. So it's just great to see. I think if we can keep growing, just what we're doing and the way the team go about the business, then that they're going to connect with the players the way that the players are putting in at the moment.
Castleford at Salford this weekend. Full match commentary from 3 o'clock. We'll be building up from 2 o'clock right here on Radio Yorkshire. We're closing the show now. We've got a lot to find out this week. Will Mr. Kukash get hold of the Bradford Bulls? But the big question is, Phil, are Castleford going to be unbeaten when we meet again next week?
Well, will Rangi play for Salford? That adds spice to the game, doesn't it? I'd like to think so, because it's been a great fairy tale. I think what we would hope for is that Salford playing Castleford draws 7,000 or 8,000 people to Salford. Castleford will take a big away following. That is the progress of Super League, if we can do that. If we can get two sides that were struggling last season to get a half full, 3/4 full stadium and have a really exciting game where we don't know who's going to win right to the last minute. That's what meaningful matches is all about. Yes, they can do it, but I think we need to see the Salford lineup.
Okay, quick, because we are running out of time. Rich, who's going to win, Hull KR Bradford?
Bradford by 4.
Phil, same question.
Yeah, I think Bradford might do something if the ownership issue gets settled.
Well, let's hope it does. Phil, thank you for your contribution tonight.
It's a pleasure.
I feel like we've just got so much we need to talk about. We'll have to do it again soon. We're going to be back every Monday night. We're at Headingley again on Friday night. Leeds play London. We'll be there. Full build-up from 7, full commentary from 8 as well. And don't forget, on Sunday, we will be there watching Salford against the Castleford Tigers. Will those Cass fans be singing Sweet Caroline again? Will Darryl Powell be unbeaten come next week? We'll find out.